Gary's a pro strongman who came to me with some obvious issues with his squat, as well as problems with his deadlift. Notice his unstable right foot during this pull.
I had a few issues that I've been really wanting to work with, been trying to work through them for the last couple of years. First of all, I get really tight pain in my hip flexors. So coming down here, I'd get to a certain depth, probably about here, where it'd just be daggers right in his hip flexors. Hurt to go for it. So then, from the side, I would really have to start tucking my lumbar spine to get to that depth point instead of creating a nice, decent spot there. Another issue I was having was this foot was really wanting to roll outwards. Every time I squat, this thing would just go poop, 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 poop. I'd start a set, pretty much here, finish the set out here. So that hip just has such little internal rotation in it that it's all going down to that foot and it's just trying to find it somewhere. So a lot of knee drifting, a lot of everything happening. So I couldn't get very symmetric, external rotation when you try to squat, toes on the ground, push out, boom. It was just really not equal on one side and the other.
Today I'm going to share with you some of our evaluation from that first day. Here's the thing to remember. Even though his pain was located in the hip flexor region, an efficient evaluation aims to uncover why that area is painful in the first place. Remember, most injuries that occur in the weight room are due to poor movement or technique and inappropriate loads. After noticing his hip shift with our movement evaluation, I wanted to check his mobility, starting from the ground up. He had pretty good ankle mobility on his left and on his right sides. His tibial rotation was also similar side to side. When I assessed his hip internal rotation, he didn't have a ton on his left side, but when I looked to his right, he had a huge restriction, so he had a big asymmetry side to side. Banded joint mobilizations were found to be very helpful for this limited hip internal rotation. Listen in on some of my cues.
You just try to relax that hip as much as possible. Then drive out to the side and squeeze this glute muscle right there. Does that feel okay?
Yep.
3-second hold. You're actually pushing. So we're trying to externally rotate and squeeze that glute. So this is the neuromuscular re-education, basically teaching that glute how to create that external rotation toward. And then we also want it to be able to relax enough. We want to be able to gain some range of motion going in. So both of them reflexively work together to make this the most effective. So a couple deep breaths. Relax that hip joint, and actually what you'll feel is when you just relax your hips and just let that tension go, you'll just notice you're going to be able to push in a little more hip. So I want 10 of these total, and then we're going to retest.
After, you can see a huge difference compared to the original screen. Next, I tried the Faber test, and you can see his left leg hangs in the air a little bit more than his right. This is why during the kettlebell weight shift, as you can see, he's able to shift a good amount towards his left side. However, he had a very hard time opening his left hip to shift towards the right side. After a few of these kettlebell weight shift exercises, we retested his Faber test, and as you can see, he made good progress with his left hip. Next, I had him do a single leg bridge test on each side to assess how well his glutes were working coordination-wise. He noticed his quads and hamstrings working hard on both sides to keep his hips up, meaning one of his reasons for developing hip issues on the front side of the body was an imbalance in coordination or under-facilitation of the glutes on the back side of the hips. Our first step was to work on some bridges with specific cues. Listen in on what I told him.
Toes jam down to the ground, engage those hips, bring the hips up, and squeeze your glutes as hard as you can in this position. Here's the science of it for you. When you push through your toes, you activate your quads a little bit more, okay? The quads reciprocally inhibit the hamstrings, so they turn them off because they can't do the same thing, right? Or else we don't get any joint movement. The only thing else to get your hips up is your glutes. So we use a little bit of science to be able to turn on the glutes a little bit more. Whereas sometimes if you were to just push through your heels, you probably get a lot of hamstrings. For some people, maybe what they're going after. But for right now, our goal is the glutes. But the glutes are going to create that external rotation forward and that pull on the femur to center the hip side just a little bit better, which means less hip impingement. Does that make sense?
Who's not firing could be causing that thing.
It's a part of it. It's a part of it, yeah.
We then put a bander on his knees and worked on technique to work the glutes in a more functional manner.
Open the hips, so screw the feet in. Okay, very good. Now from there, I want you to do a small hinge and hold. Hold it right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bring it down a little bit more. Good. Squat down from there. Squat, squat, squat. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Feel the glutes kicking on a little bit. Good. Drop down a little bit more. Drive those hips open, hips open. Good. Keep the toes down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now go all the way down and slow back up. Very good. Okay, do that whole sequence 2 more times. Your goal is to feel that glute kicking on and to feel completely balanced in the foot.
Yeah, I think I get a lot of weight on the heels.
A lot of people do, because that common cue, weight on the heels, weight on the heels. Sure, that works fine if you're dipping forward on your toes, but you want to have that entire foot glued down. Big toe, end of the fifth toe right here, and your heel. Tripod foot equally balanced. So basically think your entire foot is glued to the ground. You should not have weight pushed too far into your heels. If you are, you're just off balance.
Just find that balance. And
Exactly. Find that balance
reset
point.
the balance.
Exactly. When you are finally balanced, you'll unlock potential to lift bigger weight that you never even thought was possible.
Yeah.
Altogether, these drills allowed him to deadlift that day with much improved technique and squat with more symmetry and less pain.
How are you feeling right now?
Feel good.
That squat compared to the very first one, how does it feel?
Night and day.
Night and day different? How so?
I can feels like everything is moving almost how I want it to.
Okay.
This one drifting, this one.
Yeah. So basically, things are moving more controlled. Your right
feel like
foot's
in
not.
that bottom position. I'm not as like pitched and like working around like that pain. Not getting that little hip tuck too.
There you go. On track.
Nice.